Hello and welcome to Module 3. Today we're going to be touching on scripting for the very first time. I do want to say before we get started, if you know any Python, you're going to do exceptionally better than those who don't. And that's not to scare you, that is literally just fact. A lot of the concepts that we're going to touch on, such as variables, if statements, for loops, all that, if you've already looked at programming before or you have any conceptual understanding of a syntax, then you will do a lot better in this module. But then again, for those who don't know, we have the GitHub. I've got that GitHub right there. You can read through all the stuff, take your time, and don't panic. So, let's just get started. So, for scripting, we need to make shell files, which is not difficult. So we're going to touch to create an empty file. We're just going to call this first file S1, short for script1.sh. We're going to make it executable. I can never say that word. Executable. We know from module 2, when you create a file, you're by default given read-write privileges, but we also need executable privileges as well. So to get those privileges, to apply them to ourselves, we need to make the first number 7, 4, read, 2, write, 1, execute, 4 plus 2 plus 1, 7. We don't need to worry about group or others right now. We don't need to give them anything. And then we put the target file name, of course. And then we'll open the text editor as well and execute this all in a runner. Bang. Sorted. Okay. So we are going to be starting with a shebang. When you first write your scripts, shebang, cool name, it's called a shebang. You always need to put it in. It looks like this. It's never going to change. It's always going to look like this when you're writing in bash, because this is essentially defining the interpreter that we're going to use to run this code. It's telling the terminal, use bash to interpret this, and an interpreter basically just takes code and reads it and executes it line by line. The exact same as Python does. Python uses interpretation to run code line by line. So yeah, shebang, always going to look like that, always going to look like the exact same as that, simple. So let's not start with any variables or anything like that. Let's just say echo hello. Simple, Control O, enter, and then Control X to leave. And then to run this, we're just going to write ./s1.sh. So yeah, /, we're here, and this is just to execute the file normally, and you'll see it says hello. Cool. So let's go back into this file, and let's start with a variable. So let's just get rid of this for now, and let's start with the variable username. So I need to tell you what a syntax is at the start. So a syntax is basically the rules for writing code in a certain language. Each programming language has their own syntax. There is no universal syntax for all programming languages. It's always going to change. So for bash, you need to make sure that you're writing stuff the same way I am. You put spaces where I put spaces, or you don't put spaces where I don't put spaces, because if you don't do that, then it will cause a syntax error and your script won't run. So let's define username. So username equals, and I'll put the $, and then in brackets, who am I? And in case that like that. So basically what that's doing is when we run that in the terminal, it's going to run who am I and store the result of who am I under the variable username, which we can then reuse throughout the script. Very cool, very simple. Let's do the same for date. I know I haven't showed you how to get the date yet, but just follow as so. This isn't going to change. So we're going to put date equals $, date plus percentage sign and a capital F as well, and there you go. Simple as that. So now username stores the result of who am I, and date stores the result of date. So let's use echo again. Echo, as we know, is basically the print command of bash. We covered that in module 1. So let's actually put these variables into a string. So echo your name is, we'll use the username variable as so. So your username is $username. Now it's not actually going to say $username. It's going to take the result of username and use it as a substitute, and you'll see what I mean in a second. And we'll say the date is, and then same thing again, date. And there you go. I like Debian. I like that it colors things. I think it makes it really readable. It's cool and simple. Good for starting out. So Control O, enter to save, and then Control X, and we're just going to run this again. So as you can see, it says your name is Max. I never actually put the word Max into the script. It just runs who am I and takes that username and puts it as the username. Same with the date, straightforward, simple as that. So let's now let's run an if statement, okay, to see if we are the root user. Now we know to get the root user, if you run who am I as root, it's going to return root. So we have a way of authenticating whether you're root or not. So let's automate it. So we're going to do an if statement. So we already have username, date. We're not going to use the date for this, but we will use the username. So we'll start with if. And then when you're writing your condition, you have to encase it in square brackets. And when you're writing your variables in, please make sure you write quotation marks around them. There's no like syntax reason to that. It's just sometimes there's like bugs and errors that just, especially when your scripts get a little bit longer, it just doesn't work for some reason. So do it this way. So make sure there's spaces here as well. There must be spaces. If like $username's touching this, then it's not going to work. There must be spaces according to the syntax. So you get your quotation, like I said, and then we put username, and there you go. So yeah, so unlike Python, when you say, for example, like you don't actually have to use any brackets or anything like that. You just say if x is greater than 5, but with bash you must use quotation marks and brackets as well. So we are gonna say, well, we know if the username is root, then that means you are the root user. So we'll say if username equals root, okay, then space again and close it. So now we have our condition encapsulated. So we're just saying if the name is root, and then you must put a semicolon and then put then. And then you must do indentation. So after the then, you have to press tab to indent, and then echo you are the root user. And then we'll come down again and say else. So we're saying otherwise, if the name is not root, then we will tab again, echo you are not the root user, you scumbag. Bang. And then we're going to come down again and type B. That's just if backwards. So we're just telling the interpreter that we are done with this if statement. It's finished. So Control O, enter to save, Control X, and we will run it normally, not as the sudoer. So when we run this, it's going to obviously detect that we are not the root user and display as such. So yeah, I'm not the root user. And it figures this out because it grabs username. Okay, my username normally is Max, so it's going to take Max and it's going to compare it to root, and it's going to see, well, Max isn't root, so he's not the root user. Simple as that. However, to run a script as root, you just put sudo at the start, and then put your password. You are the root user. Simple as that. So straightforward how to use an if statement. They're not very complicated. So let's use a for statement. So to do this, let's just create a new file. Hang on, I'll just use the previous command to save some time. We will call it s2. Obviously standard for script2, just not to get confused. And then enter that. Bang. So let's just make like a normal for loop that just, well, for loops can be used for something that you need something to happen a certain amount of times, according to a previous condition or something like that. Anyway, let's start with what we know. Always put in the shebang at the start. Print it on your, like, get a tattoo on your forehead or something if you can't remember, because you need to put a shebang at the start of all of your scripts to define the interpreter. Always make sure you know that. Tattoo it somewhere. Write it in pen on your arm. So yeah, let's just start with this for loop. So we'll say for and we'll use I, short for integer. It's not actually short for integer, I'm just saying that. So we'll just say int, just to make it a bit easier for you guys. So for int in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then once you've done this, so it's similar to how we had if username equals root, you put the semicolon at the end. And basically what we're saying is for int is the variable. We've defined the variable now. Int standing for integer, as I said, which an integer is just basically a whole number, like 1, 2, 3, or 5. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then you just say do after that. So for loops, you use do, and when you're finishing them, you write done, as you'll see in a second. I have on GitHub. Go on GitHub for a little cheat sheet that basically says how to pair these together. So when you use if statements, you say if, and then you put then, and then you put fee at the end. But for loops, you put do and then done when you're finished. So for int in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you must obviously indent again, and we'll just say echo number, and then we'll use the variable. So we will just put $int. Simple as that, and we'll come down and we'll put done. Very straightforward, and I've made a mistake. I made that capital for some reason, sorry. Make that lowercase, according to the variable, so that it links and it doesn't use something else. Control O, enter, Control X, and we will run this. Hang on a second, bang. So as you can see, it has printed all 5 numbers, but there's actually an easier way to do this. So let's go back into the thing, and we're going to use something called a brace expansion. Really not complicated, I promise you. It does sound scary, but it's not. So say you had to do for int in 1 to 25, okay? Obviously, I don't want to sit here and do 6, 7, all the way up till 25. You don't have to. You could just put these brackets. I do apologize, I don't know what they're called. And then you put 1 dot dot, and then you put the maximum value that you want to go to, so 25 in this case. Then you close that. Sorry. Close it. Control O, enter, Control X, and then we just run it again. You don't have to put sudo, it was just the command that I used last. But there you go. So, and now it lists it all up to 25, nice and simple, and that's how we use for loops and brace expansions. So now let's create a new script again. Touch S3. Actually, what am I doing? I'm going to use the previous command again because I'm lazy and I don't want to write. So you already know the command separators, the semicolon. It does all the stuff regardless of output. I know it's going to go through, but yeah. We touched on that in module 1, but I did want to use it again because it is convenient, and also I want you to see it again for your own good. So, shebang. Always a shebang at the start. Always. For all the scripting that we're going to be doing, always going to be putting a shebang at the start. Always, always, always. Okay, now we're going to be doing another for loop. So we're going to say for. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to loop over files. So this is going to be like an actual instance of the for loop instead of making the terminal count to 5. So for file in /var/log. So basically what these directories are, they're subdirectory, the home directory. /var stands for variable data. It stores folders that change often. It stores files that change often. And /var/log, it contains the log files. So it just records system activity, which is super handy to scan. And we will scan all the log files. So to do this, we don't obviously have to write the name of all files that end in .log. We can use what we learned in module 2, wildcards. So everything before .log will be scanned. It's as simple as that. And we know now that we've written we've written our variable in this, and we put a semicolon, and we put do. Simple as that. So next we're gonna indent, of course, echo scanning, and then we'll use the file variable. So basically what we're saying is it's going to take the file name and it's going to say it's scanning that file. So as we did previously with the username, you'll see for file in var/log, and all files that end in .log, it's going to say scanning. We'll say the file name, for example, is called cat.log. It's going to say that it's scanning cat.log. And we'll come down again, and we're going to use a new command called grep. Grep basically just searches the log files for a certain word. In this case, well, it doesn't search specifically the log files, but in this case it does, because that's the files that we're scanning. So we're going to grep the word error. And you need to make a space again and define the variable. You can't do this in the same string. It must be separate. And then, of course, once we're finished, you put it done at the end, just to tell the interpreter, I'm finished here, I'm ready to go. So Control O, Enter, Control X, and we will run this as well. You don't need the sudo there. I was just being lazy. So, okay, now we'll run this. And as you can see, well, some said permission denied because we didn't run it as sudo. But you can see, actually, I'm going to run this as sudo. It's probably better. I can see that most of them said permission denied. So we'll run that. And as you can see, we have literally just made our own log scanner. Simple as that. Already, module 3, and we've made a log scanner. You should be proud of yourself. So as you can see, yes, we have scanned all the .log files under /var/log, and you can see it has returned all instances of the word error. Extremely simple, just like that. Efficient too. This wouldn't be like a script in of itself. It would be a subscript of a larger script. But yeah, let's clear the terminal and let's actually combine what we've just learned. Okay, let's start with the final script. We will call it simple. What am I doing? Touch simple scanner .sh, and we will make it executable for ourselves, take privileges away from everyone else. And then open the text editor. Simple as that. Okay. Already ready to go. Now, what do you think I'm about to say next? I'm about to say shebang. If I can even write one. Okay. Cool. /bin/bash shebang in. I'm gonna write this script and like in a way that makes it readable, pretty much. Like, I'm not gonna write all in a block and have a hard to read output. It's not the case. I'm going to be using like spacing and stuff to make it readable. When you write scripts, you're best making it readable. Even adding comments. Comments are essentially just parts where you write a hashtag, and you can write something like, hello, this is my script. Now, this won't actually be part of the script. The interpreter will completely ignore it. It's just for when you look at your script, you'll be able to see comments yourself. So let's start, same as the first one, let's just define username right now. So, and we're going to use this to verify if who's running it is the root user. We'll also grab the date as well, same as we did the first time. Okay, so first of all, let's just greet the user. So echo hello. I like welcome instead. Welcome. And I'll put the username variable. Today's date is, and we just put date. Simple as that. And then I'm gonna introduce you to something else called sleep. So basically, what sleep does is it'll just pause for a certain amount of time. So it doesn't actually do anything too extreme. Sleep 1, the terminal will basically just count to 1 before executing the next part of the script. So it's cool. It's like if I wrote echo initializing, and I could put sleep 3 underneath, it wouldn't all run it in a oneer. It'll wait 3 seconds before it executes the next command. So you'll see what I mean when I actually run it. Matter of fact, actually, I'll actually include it. So echo initializing, and we'll put like 3 dots or something like that, and we'll put sleep 3. So I'll actually just run it as it is now, so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. So / simple scanner.sh, and you'll see it takes a little second, and there you go. So cool, simple, just like that. So let's head back in. What am I doing? And let's carry on with the script. So next up, let's just use what we already know. Let's start by defining the root user. So we'll make it so that only the root user can run this script. So if username equals root, and we know, sorry, close it like such, semicolon, and then we come down and we indent. We'll come here and we'll say, so this is under the assumption that it's been successful. So we'll say root user detected, something like that. And then we'll come underneath and we'll just say like sleep, I don't know, 2. So staying in the same if loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a for loop inside of the if loop. Now this isn't complicated, nothing to worry about. We just indent as normal. The indentation is done for us as long as we just press it. But the reason I'm writing this for loop inside of the if statement is because I want this to work only if the person using this script is the root user. So we'll say when we're finished writing the script, we'll write an else at the end, pretty much saying you can't use the script essentially. But yeah, so we'll say for dir in, and we're going to scan 3 different directories here. We're going to scan the home directory. Hang on, I put 2 spaces in. Home, we'll scan tmp, and we'll scan var. tmp, home directory, you know what that is, holds everything. tmp, temporary files, var. This isn't /home/tmp/var like you've been shown already because of the spaces. So it's basically gonna scan these files separately is what we're going to write it to do. We're not doing /home/tmp/var. We're doing them individually. So put a semicolon, put do, come down, and we must again. But because we have a for loop here, hang on a second, we must go twice. We're going to just put a space in here. So to just put a space, like this is just when the script executes, it's just going to put like a little blank, which is nice. Come over again, and we will now actually use the dir variable. So we'll say echo scanning, and we'll use dir again for world writable files. Cool. So we've now used dir in a case, and now we're actually going to define what we're actually looking for. So let's come down again, sleep 2, for example, come down once more, and we will use a command that you might be familiar with. We use this command in module 2, so it is find. We touched on find quite a bit, and I'm going to be using it in a sense that you might know. So we're going to use find, but because we're putting the variable in, it's better to put it in quotations, just so that it works. And then since we said we're going to scan for world writable files, we're basically going to scan for files that others can write to. That is, we touched on this in module 2. So yeah, world writable basically just means that others can write to the file. It's as simple as that. So we know how to use the find command. So what we're going to do is, as we said, world writable files. So find the dir variable, and we're going to do dash type f to specify that we're looking for files. And then we want world writable files, which means we're going to do dash perm dash o to specify we're looking for others, and then say that they have write privileges. I covered this in module 2. I do recommend, if you don't understand what I'm writing right now, you go back or check out that GitHub, you know, great stuff on there too. And we're gonna silence error messages as well, because there's probably gonna be quite a lot since we're scanning a good amount of directories. And so come back down and we'll just sleep for 1 second. And then we'll come back and we will close this for loop. So the for loop is now finished. Now, again, if statements end with fee and for ends with done, this is important and it's good because basically this done won't end the if statement. It will only end the for. So it's going to scan for all world writable files inside of those directories, and specifically world writable directories, world writable files, as we've specified here that we're looking for type F files with the permissions that others have writable privileges to. And then silence error messages. Cool. The reason that I'm scanning for world writable files is because in these directories, if some of these files are world writable, it's actually a security risk. So hence why I'm scanning specifically for those files, because then we can keep the script and use it for instances where we have to check these specific directories, or I could even come back into the script and add more directories here that I'd like to scan, such as etc. We spent a lot of time with the etc directory, so you should be pretty familiar with it. But let's also use what we learned in script 3 and let's scan the log as well. So we'll come down and we will begin a new for loop and use for log file in /var/log, and then we'll again scan all the log files, and then we come to do, and then 2 spaces here just for readability's sake, checking, and then we'll use cool. So this will just say checking the log file that we have gotten. So as explained before, for log file, it'll grab the name of the log file, store the name of the log file under the variable log file, and substitute it for $log file. Log file. I will come here and we'll again grep the word error. You should know by now that we need to put 2 spaces. We can't just put it in the one. It doesn't work. Log file, and then we will also close this. Simple as that. So we'll just put done again, and then we'll come down and now we'll actually close the if statement. So we'll say just to finish things off, echo scan complete, and then we'll put the else statement in now. So else, and then we'll put just another space, and we'll say echo you are not the root user, so you cannot use this script. Okay, now just to explain what's happened is we've now done the else statement for the if. You can see it's in the same line. You don't actually have to do this indentation. You could all write it in a oneer, but it is going to look literally so much harder to read, you have no idea. So now we're writing the else for the if statement. So we're saying if the username is root, then do all this stuff, but then otherwise if it's not, we'll say you are not the root user, so you cannot use this script. Literally as simple as that. And then we'll put fee to end the if statement. So that is it, completely done. We've completely closed it. So we'll come down here and we'll just say, and it is literally as simple as that. Like, that is the entire, we've just written, this is pretty complicated, by the way. And again, don't feel panicked, because we'll come back, we'll write similar stuff to this. This won't be the only thing that I make like this. Module 12 is an intrusion detection system as well, so we'll be applying a lot of these concepts, so don't worry about it too much. I just want to come back here and say I made a mistake myself. I forgot to put a space here. So again, to clarify, even for me to make mistakes, you must come back and put a space here. I tried running the script and it didn't work because I had a syntax error, which is quite cool actually, because I get to show you it. It didn't work because there was no space here. There must be a space here for the script to run. Syntax errors again, you know, if it's not written according to the programming language rules, it won't work. It was a stupid mistake by me. It happens. Anyway, Control O, enter to save, Control X, and let's come back. As you can see, it will say simple scanner sh line 10. I was missing a space. Totally my fault. Anyway, let's continue. So let's run this script normally. Okay. So running it normally, it will tell me I can't use the script because it will verify that I'm not the root user. Because when we use sudo, it returns root. But because we're not using sudo, it's going to return max, and that username is not going to equate to root. So let it run, and it's going to tell me no. Okay, simple. Now let's actually run this properly. And here you have it. Let it run. Root user detected. Check it out. Cool, huh? So there you go. You have successfully written a pretty complicated script that checks for all world writable files in certain directories and then searches for the word error throughout them. Honestly, well done. I do understand this stuff can be pretty tricky. It's going to be built on, and check out that GitHub. I've said it 100 times and I'm going to say it again, but that's where it's going to wrap up for today. I hope you've learned something, and thank you very much for your time.